Mr. Trump, we are less than 24 hours away from a ceasefire in Syria that has been brokered between the U.S. and Russia. Do you support this ceasefire?
I really don't, because it's not working and the countries aren't agreeing to it and the rebels aren't agreeing and Syria is not agreeing to it. It's a meaningless ceasefire. I love the idea of a ceasefire. I love the idea with a total cessation. But it's not working, as you know very well. It's not working. If we can do all we want with Russia, but nobody else is adhering to it. So I certainly support it. I would certainly love it, but all parties have to be part of it.
Senator Cruz, your opinion on the ceasefire?
Well, look, we're certainly hopeful that the violence will cease, but there's reason to be highly skeptical. Russia has enhanced its position because of Obama's weakness in the Middle East, weakness in Syria. And, you know, as we're headed to November, we need to nominate a Republican candidate that can lay out a clear difference with both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton on foreign policy. One of the real challenges with both Donald and Senator Rubio is that they have agreed over and over again with both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. So, for example, in Libya, both of them agreed with the Obama-Clinton policy of toppling the government in Libya. That was a disaster. It gave the country over to radical Islamic terrorism, and it endangered America. Another example is John Kerry. John Kerry, Senator Rubio voted to confirm John Kerry as Secretary of State. I voted against him, and Donald Trump supported John Kerry against George W. Bush in 2004, gave him a check, and John Kerry has been the most anti-Israel Secretary of State this country has ever seen. His diplomacy has been a disaster, and if we nominate someone who agreed with John Kerry, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton on foreign policy, we're not in a strong position to win the general election.
A response, Mr. Trump, then Mr. Rubio.
Again, I think I gave them both checks, to be exactly honest. I think they both like me very much. But the fact is that—
You called for Bush to be impeached.
Well, I think Bush did a hell of a bad job as far as that's concerned. You know it, and so do I.
But you gave him a check and called for him to be impeached?
Be honest. No, this was before. The check came early. But let me just tell you, Syria, he's saying that I was in favor of Syria. He said I was in favor of Libya. I never discussed that subject. I was in favor of Libya. We would be so much better off if Gaddafi were in charge right now. If these politicians went to the beach and didn't do a thing, and we had Saddam Hussein, and if we had Gaddafi in charge, instead of having terrorism all over the place, would be, at least they killed terrorists, all right? And I'm not saying they were good because they were bad. They were really bad. But we don't know what we're getting. You look at Libya right now. ISIS, as we speak, is taking over their oil. As we speak, it's a total mess. We would have been better off if the politicians took a day off instead of going into war.
Senator Rubio.
Yeah, a couple points. Number one, on the Libya situation, we didn't topple Gaddafi. The Libyan people toppled Gaddafi. The only choice before America that this president had to make is, does it happen quickly or does it take a long time? And I argued if it takes a long time, you're going to have rebel forces emerge like these radical Islamists that take advantage of the vacuum. And that's what happened. That's where the term lead from behind came. And that's the foreign policy that apparently Senator Cruz appears to agree with. On John Kerry, yeah, you know why? Because every day John Kerry wasn't appointed was another day Hillary Clinton was still in charge of the State Department. And she was absolutely horrible. I couldn't imagine that they were going to find somebody even worse than her. But this president never ceases to amaze. And the last point I would make on South Korea, now this is important, because we're asking to be commander-in-chief. Donald is asking to be commander-in-chief, and he's saying these guys need to do more. South Korea contributes $800 million a year to that effort, and Japan contributes as well. And here's why our commitment to that regional security is so critical, Donald, because if we walk away from them, both Japan and South Korea will become nuclear weapons powers. They can do that very quickly. And that's what they will do if the American defense agreements withers away, which is why we have to rebuild the military, but why we can't walk away from our Asia-Pacific defense status.
Mr. Trump.
I never said walk away. I wouldn't want to walk away. I want them to pay us much more money. We cannot afford to subsidize a lot. I'll negotiate a lot more money than you'll ever get. But as far as John Kerry is concerned, there has been no tougher critic of this man. I think he negotiated one of the worst deals in the history of our country, the Iran deal, where they get their $150 billion and all of the other things that take place. It is a disaster for this country. And speaking of Israel, it's a disaster for Israel. I'm no fan of
Senator
John
Cruz.
Kerry.
Hold on, Governor. Senator Cruz.
You know, it's interesting. Donald just said that he never came out in favor of toppling Gaddafi in Libya. Well, he stated that in an interview that will be on our website, tedcruz.org. You can see and hear the exact words from Donald's mouth, and I assume when he sees that interview, maybe he forgot about it. that I assume Donald will apologize where he sees that he said exactly that. With regard to John Kerry, I will say John Kerry's foreign policy has been a disaster for decades. That's why I voted against him when he came up. And the fact that Donald Trump would write him a check and support him against George W. Bush shows exceptionally poor foreign policy judgment. And I'll give one more example in Israel. When the Obama administration canceled civilian air flights into the nation of Israel, when Hamas was raining rockets down on them, I publicly asked, is this an economic boycott against Israel? The next day, Michael Bloomberg, another New York billionaire, got on a plane, a commercial flight, and flew to Israel from London. Together, the heat and light that was put on the State Department was so great that within 36 hours, they lifted the ban on air flights into Israel during that entire battle. And indeed, during every battle on Israel, the natural question is, where was Donald? If this is something he cares about, why has he supported anti-Israel politicians from Jimmy Carter to Hillary Clinton to John Kerry for 4 decades? If you care about Israel, you don't write checks to politicians who are undermining Israel. Instead, you stand and support the national security of America and the alliance.
There's a critical point that needs to be made here.
Governor, he attacked Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump has a right to respond.
Well, look, my response is very simple. There is nobody on this stage that has done more for Israel than I have. Nobody. You might say, you might talk, your politicians all talk, no action. I've been watching it all my life. You are all talk and no action. What I've seen up here, I mean, first of all, this guy's a joke artist and this guy's a liar. You have a combination. This guy always goes. You have a combination of factors. He can't do it for the obvious reason, and he can't do it because he doesn't know how to tell the truth. Other than that, I rest my case.
This is the typical thing he does on any debate about policy.
One at a time,
he goes right for the
Governor Kasich, you have the floor. Governor,
I get a response to that.
You will have a response, but I promised Governor Kasich he could respond.
Can somebody attack me, please?
Okay, here, Wolf. There's something I want to.